All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest shakeups in finance. We're talking about how artificial intelligence is completely rewriting the rules of financial risk management. We're moving past those old, rigid equations and into a brand new world of systems that can actually learn and, believe it or not, see what's coming around the corner.
So, first things first, why is this even happening? Well, the simple truth is, the old ways just can't keep up. Traditional models were built for a much slower, more predictable world. But today's markets, they change in the blink of an eye. And that means those old models can become useless fast, leaving huge institutions wide open to massive shocks they never, ever saw coming. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures the massive trade-off we're facing. Do we stick with the old models that are easy to explain but are basically flying blind? Or do we embrace these new powerful AI models that can spot incredibly subtle patterns but are often total black boxes where we can't fully see how they're making their decisions? It's a real dilemma. Okay, so let's really dig into why that old model is broken. See, traditional risk modeling was built on this foundation of fixed assumptions, ideas about how the market is supposed to work and how people are supposed to behave. But here's the million-dollar question. What happens when reality just doesn't follow the script anymore?
This really lays it all out. On one side, you've got the traditional approach. It's all about fixed rules. Like, it might assume that if someone's income drops by 20%, their chance of defaulting on a loan always goes up by 10%. But we all know life isn't that simple, right? Now look at the AI approach. It's not working off a rulebook. It's learning from real-world data. It might see that same 20% income drop and realize that in a strong economy, it barely matters. But during a recession, it could be the first domino to fall in a huge wave of defaults. We're making a huge shift from a world of what we assume to a world of what we observe.
So, if that old logic is busted, what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to AI's completely new logic. We're talking about an approach that is constantly soaking up new information, adapting on the fly to new market conditions, and literally evolving its own understanding of what risk even is. And an AI model isn't just some magic box. It's actually a pretty sophisticated, layered system. It all starts by just flooding it with data, way, way more than any human team could possibly sift through. Then it gets clever. It starts engineering features, which is a fancy way of saying it figures out which pieces of all that data are actually important signals. At the heart of it all is the machine learning core, and that's where it hunts for those hidden patterns. Now, what comes out is a simple score or an alert, but, and this is absolutely crucial, there's a governance layer wrapped around the whole thing, making sure it stays transparent and accountable. In this process, it's not a one-way street. It's not set it and forget it. Data gets pulled in, cleaned up, and used to train the model on history. But here's the game changer. Once the model is live, it's being watched constantly. Its performance, its successes, its failures, all of that becomes new data that feeds right back into the system. This creates this incredible continuous learning loop. The model literally gets smarter with every passing second. So where are we actually putting this new logic to work? Well, pretty much everywhere. AI is already being rolled out across the entire spectrum of financial risk. We're talking everything from deciding if an individual gets a loan, all the way to stress testing the stability of the entire financial system. And believe me, these are not just buzzwords. AI is bringing some serious advantages to each of these areas. Let's look at some of these superpowers in action. Take credit risk. An AI can analyze millions of data points, like tiny shifts in spending patterns, to predict if a borrower might be heading for trouble, long before they even miss a single payment. For market risk, it's like a super sophisticated radar, picking up the faintest whispers of volatility that a human would totally miss. And for operational risk, it can scan a company's internal data to spot a weak link in a process before it breaks and causes a major problem. And this next one, this is a huge one. For years, stress testing has been, let's be honest, kind of a compliance checkbox exercise. You run the same old scenarios. What if oil prices collapse? What if interest rates spike? But AI flips the script. It learns from every past crisis to dream up new, completely unexpected but totally plausible disaster scenarios. It might find some weird combination of events, like rising shipping costs and a minor currency dip, that could create a perfect storm nobody was even looking for. That's how a boring compliance task becomes an incredibly powerful strategic weapon. So this power is just undeniable. But, of course, with great power comes, well, you know the rest. And this raises some really urgent questions. When you have systems that are this smart and this fast, how on earth do we make sure we're still in control? How do we trust them?
And this really is the elephant in the room. It's the black box problem. I mean, if we can't fully understand the logic a model used to make a decision, how can we possibly trust it? How can we prove to ourselves, or to a regulator, that its decisions are fair and justified?
And the challenges here are very, very real. First, you've got data. Remember, AI learns from history. If that history contains bias, the AI will learn that bias perfectly and apply it with terrifying efficiency. Second, as we said, you can't always interpret how it's thinking. Third, there's something called model drift. The world is always changing, and a model that was brilliant 6 months ago might be making terrible decisions today. And all of this, of course, creates huge regulatory and ethical headaches.
Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to one simple fact. You cannot walk into a regulator's office after something goes wrong and say, "Hey, don't look at me, the algorithm decided." That just does not fly. Not now, not ever. There has to be accountability. So what's the solution here? How do we get all that power without the massive peril? Well, it's not a choice between humans and machines. It's actually about creating a brand new kind of partnership where technology scales up human judgment instead of just trying to replace it. Let's see how that works. The key to this whole partnership has a name. It's called Explainable AI, or XAI. Think of XAI as a toolkit that lets us crack open that black box and finally see what's going on inside. So, for example, if an AI system denies a loan, XAI doesn't just give you a no. It gives you a no, and here's exactly why, breaking it down into the specific factors that led to that decision. And just like that, a mysterious process becomes a completely transparent and auditable one. This new reality also means the job of the risk analyst is changing in a huge way. It's not just about building and running models anymore. The analyst of yesterday was a rule follower. The analyst of tomorrow, you're going to be more like a detective, an interpreter of patterns. You're going to be a model supervisor, and frankly, you're going to have to be an ethicist, constantly asking the tough questions to make sure these powerful tools are being used responsibly. So this human-AI partnership really stands on 3 essential pillars. First, you need robust governance, basically clear rules of the road for how these models are built and managed. Second, you need continuous human oversight. A human pilot has to be in the cockpit at all times. And third, you need strong ethical boundaries, clear red lines that will not be crossed. The big takeaway here is that our technology and our governance have to evolve hand in hand. Because in the end, that's what this is all about. AI can handle the speed and the scale of modern risk in a way humans never could. But the final judgment call, the ethical questions, the deep understanding of the results, that will always be up to us. The future isn't about building smarter machines. It's about all of us becoming wiser users. The smartest systems will always need the wisest minds. So the real question is, are you ready to be one of them?